Gunther's unhinged moment after WrestleMania 41, The Undertaker's reaction and WWE's new era. Wrestling fans have witnessed countless unforgettable moments over the years, title changes, heel turns, surprise returns, but what unfolded after WrestleMania 41 was a moment so intense, so unhinged, that it left even the most battle-hardened superstars stunned in disbelief. It wasn't just any ordinary WWE moment. It was the moment Gunther, the once disciplined and proud ring general, completely lost control on live television. But what made this shocking scene even more unsettling was the reaction that came after, from none other than The Undertaker himself. Let's set the stage. WrestleMania 41 had all the ingredients to be a classic, and it delivered on every front. Jey Uso, the underdog many thought would crack under the pressure, stepped into the spotlight and did the unthinkable. He defeated Gunther. Not just defeated him, but took away the one thing Gunther held above everything else, the World Heavyweight Championship. This was more than a loss for Gunther, it was a complete unraveling of everything he believed he stood for. His dominance. His legacy. His identity in WWE. Now, usually, when a champion loses, you expect a post-match promo, a rematch announcement, maybe even a slow build toward redemption. But that wasn't the case this time. Gunther didn't wait. He didn't speak. He didn't even try to reclaim his place the traditional way. Instead, he let his fury build, and it exploded the very next night on Raw in a moment that nobody saw coming. The aftermath of WrestleMania 41. The stage was set. WrestleMania 41 had been an event for the ages. The spectacle, the surprises, and the stories coming to fruition had WWE fans on the edge of their seats. Gunther, who had spent the past year dominating the WWE landscape as the reigning World Heavyweight Champion, stood atop the mountain, an unstoppable force. No one could touch him, or so it seemed. But that was before Jey Uso. Jey Uso, against all odds, managed to defeat Gunther in a match that defied expectations. The crowd erupted as Jey pinned the ring general, ending Gunther's lengthy reign with a victory that no one thought would come. But Jey's win wasn't just another championship moment. It was a symbol of resilience and defiance, a victory that transcended the individual. For Gunther, this wasn't just a title loss, it was the shattering of his perceived invincibility. Backstage after the match, the mood was one of disbelief. Gunther wasn't in his usual state. His intense focus had been replaced with something darker. He walked through the corridors of the arena with a blank expression, eyes locked forward but seemingly seeing nothing. His pride had been crushed, his world turned upside down. This wasn't just about losing the title, it was about losing control, about realizing that the very thing he built his entire career on had been taken from him in a single, shocking moment. As fans flooded social media with reactions, memes, and endless commentary about the shocking outcome of the match, no one could have predicted what would happen next. Raw after WrestleMania, the night Gunther lost control. April 21st, Raw after WrestleMania. Las Vegas. The T-Mobile Arena was rocking with excitement. The energy in the building was electric as fans celebrated what they had just witnessed at WrestleMania. Jey Uso had done the impossible. He stood in the ring, celebrating with fans, basking in the glory of his monumental victory. The chants were deafening. Yeet signs were everywhere. This was Jey's moment, and he was going to soak it in. Jey addressed the fans with a microphone in hand, sharing his emotions, his journey, and his gratitude for the support he had received throughout his career. But just as the celebration seemed to reach its peak, the mood shifted. A sudden darkness fell over the arena, as the sound of Gunther's theme music blasted through the speakers. The crowd instantly shifted, their energy changing from joy to tension as they anticipated what would happen next. Gunther emerged, but this wasn't the ring general everyone had known. His face was a mask of fury. His eyes, cold and filled with rage, scanned the arena. He marched down the ramp, not with his usual methodical precision, but with a palpable sense of aggression. The crowd was in stunned silence. Gunther, the usually calculated and composed champion, looked completely unhinged. As Gunther entered the ring, Jey Uso stood there, unsure of what to make of the situation. The crowd fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. What was Gunther going to do? Would he demand a rematch? Would he challenge Jey once again for the title? Or was this a moment of total destruction? To everyone's surprise, Gunther didn't speak. He didn't issue a challenge. He didn't even look at Jey in the way you would expect a furious competitor to. Instead, Gunther stood still for a moment, staring straight ahead, almost as if he was trying to regain control of his own mind. His hands clenched into fists. The audience waited. And then, Gunther exploded. With the precision and violence of a wild animal, he lashed out. A brutal punch to Jey's face sent him reeling. The ring was filled with chaos as Gunther, no longer the disciplined and controlled champion, savagely assaulted Jey Uso. He tore into him, throwing punches, kicks, and body slams without any sense of strategy, just pure, unfiltered rage. The officials rushed into the ring, but they were no match for Gunther's fury. Security had to intervene, pulling Gunther away, but not before he delivered a final, crushing blow to Jey's midsection, leaving the new champion crumpled on the mat. The crowd was left in stunned silence. What had just happened? The Undertaker's reaction. Just when it seemed that Gunther's rampage couldn't get any more disturbing, another shockwave hit the WWE universe. The next night, on Raw, fans were treated to something they never expected, the Undertaker's reaction. The Deadman, a living legend in the WWE, had never been one to shy away from speaking his mind, but his presence in the ring was often shrouded in mystery. But this time, it wasn't about his usual ominous promos or cryptic messages. This time, The Undertaker came out to address Gunther's meltdown in the ring. The crowd erupted when The Undertaker's chilling theme song blared through the arena. As the arena plunged into darkness, the familiar sound of the gong echoed. The lights flickered, and The Undertaker emerged, his presence alone commanding the attention of everyone in the building. Gunther had just unleashed chaos on Jey Uso, and now the Deadman was here to witness it firsthand. The Undertaker stepped into the ring, his eyes locked on the shattered champion before him. The tension in the arena was palpable. Gunther, still furious and seething from his actions, stood in the ring, his chest heaving with anger. The Undertaker didn't flinch. He didn't react to Gunther's rage. Instead, he slowly walked to the center of the ring, his eyes never leaving the ring general. Gunther, The Undertaker's voice boomed across the arena. You've lost yourself. You think you can control everything, but in the end, control doesn't exist in this business. The only thing that matters is survival. The crowd hung on every word. The Undertaker, the man who had seen it all in WWE, was speaking directly to Gunther. You've fallen from grace, boy. But it's not too late. You still have time to realize that your destruction is not something you can control. It's something that controls you. Gunther, now visibly shaken, stood silent. The Deadman's words had cut deep. For the first time since WrestleMania, Gunther's arrogance seemed to falter. He was no longer the indomitable force he had once been. Instead, he was a man broken by his own rage. The Undertaker extended his hand, not in friendship, but in a gesture of warning. Gunther stood motionless for a moment, his mind battling between rage and understanding. But then, without a word, Gunther left the ring. He walked up the ramp, his mind still spinning from the events of the past 48 hours. The crowd remained silent, wondering what would come next. The fallout and what's next for Gunther. Gunther's future in WWE is now uncertain. His destruction of Jey Uso and his loss of the World Heavyweight Championship have thrown him into a spiral. His identity has been shattered, and now, he must find a way to rebuild himself. The Undertaker's words continue to echo in the minds of fans and superstars alike. What happens next for Gunther? Will he regain control, or will he descend into a darker, more dangerous version of himself? Will the loss to Jey Uso be the beginning of his downfall, or will he rise from the ashes stronger than ever? One thing is certain, WrestleMania 41 was just the beginning of a new chapter in Gunther's story, and this next chapter promises to be one of the most unpredictable in WWE history. The only question left is, will Gunther learn from his mistakes, or will he continue down a path of self-destruction? Only time will tell. Gunther's descent into madness. After the devastating loss at WrestleMania 41 and the chaotic Raw after the event, Gunther's future became a topic of intense speculation. The Undertaker's words hung in the air like a dark cloud, a reminder of the ring general's apparent loss of control. Gunther's decline was no longer just a storyline, it was a personal journey, one that was playing out in front of a captivated WWE universe. Gunther, who once exuded confidence and discipline, now seemed to be spiraling. The weeks following WrestleMania showed a completely different side of him. His once pristine ring gear, meticulously crafted, began to show signs of wear, his movements growing more erratic and less controlled. The sharpness that had defined his in-ring style was replaced by reckless aggression, as if the pain of losing the World Heavyweight Championship had consumed him. Gunther no longer cared about winning with precision, all that mattered now was destruction. In a match against a young up-and-coming superstar on an episode of SmackDown, Gunther's anger boiled over once again. The match started as expected, with Gunther dominating the early stages. But it was clear that something was off. As the match progressed, Gunther's intensity reached a fever pitch. He became more aggressive, taking liberties with his opponent, landing stiff shots that seemed unnecessary. The crowd grew uneasy as Gunther's frustration spilled out in the form of vicious strikes. The referee attempted to intervene, but it was no use. Gunther wasn't just winning the match, he was punishing his opponent, taking out all of his rage in the process. It wasn't long before the match ended in disqualification, but even that couldn't stop Gunther. He continued his assault, throwing his opponent into the steel steps and throwing chairs around the ring. The officials once again tried to restrain him, but Gunther refused to stop. This wasn't the same man who had once taken pride in his discipline and control. This was a monster, one that was completely out of control. The following week on SmackDown, Gunther finally spoke. In a somber, chilling promo, he admitted what everyone already knew, he had lost everything. His championship. His pride. His legacy. But what he said next shocked the WWE universe. "I don't need the title," Gunther sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "I don't need anything. The world thinks I've been broken. But what they don't understand is that I'm free now. Free to do whatever I want. And there's no one who can stop me." Gunther's descent had begun in earnest, and it seemed there was no turning back. The return of the ring general. In the weeks that followed, the WWE universe was captivated by Gunther's unpredictable behavior. While some fans continued to question whether this version of Gunther would be the same dominant force he once was, others were intrigued by the potential for a darker, more dangerous incarnation of the ring general. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter for Gunther, one where he embraces his chaos and ruthlessness rather than his discipline and honor? Gunther's reckless reign of terror on SmackDown didn't go unnoticed. A new challenger appeared on the horizon, someone who was tired of watching Gunther destroy everything in his path and had no intention of letting him continue unchecked. Enter Drew McIntyre, the Scottish warrior. McIntyre, who had recently been embroiled in his own personal struggles within WWE, saw in Gunther not just a target, but a symbol of everything he despised. Drew had been in the WWE long enough to know that sometimes you needed to strip away the facade and show your opponent the truth, especially when that opponent had fallen from grace. Drew made it clear that he was willing to fight the old Gunther, the disciplined champion who commanded respect. But if Gunther wanted to remain the dominant force he once was, he would have to fight Drew McIntyre, both for his legacy and his future. The announcement for the match between Drew McIntyre and Gunther was made official for the next pay-per-view, and it set the stage for one of the most anticipated showdowns in recent history. Fans wondered what kind of Gunther they would see in the match. Would it be the calculated, icy champion they once knew, or would it be the unhinged beast who had terrorized the SmackDown roster in recent weeks? The match that changed everything. The night of the pay-per-view, the atmosphere was electric. The crowd was buzzing with anticipation, eager to see what kind of match Gunther and Drew McIntyre would deliver. The moment had arrived, and the stakes were high. Gunther was still without the World Heavyweight Championship, but now he had to prove that he could still be the dominant force in WWE. The match itself was a brutal, physical contest. Drew McIntyre brought everything he had. He was focused, determined, and relentless. He was the embodiment of the fighting spirit, taking the fight to Gunther with hard-hitting moves and a fierce attitude. For a time, it seemed as if McIntyre had the upper hand, using his experience and power to keep Gunther off balance. But Gunther, despite his recklessness, still had the heart of a champion. As the match wore on, it became clear that he was willing to do whatever it took to survive. Gunther found new reserves of strength, and his aggression became more calculated. He used Drew's own momentum against him, countering his moves with brutal precision. Every time McIntyre seemed to have the upper hand, Gunther was right there with a counterattack, showing that his aggression wasn't just blind rage, it was a twisted form of strategy. The climax of the match came when Drew McIntyre hit Gunther with a Claymore kick, sending the ring general crashing to the mat. The crowd was on their feet, ready to witness McIntyre claim victory. But Gunther, with a look of pure fury in his eyes, dug deep and kicked out at the last possible moment. The audience gasped as Gunther staggered to his feet, his body battered but his mind focused. In an instant, Gunther locked Drew McIntyre in a devastating powerbomb, driving the Scottish warrior into the mat with earth-shattering force. The crowd was left in disbelief as Gunther covered McIntyre for the pin, securing the win in a match that was nothing short of brutal. Gunther had done it. He had regained control. But this victory wasn't like his previous ones. It wasn't about reclaiming the title or proving his dominance in the traditional sense. It was about reclaiming his own identity. Gunther had finally faced the chaos within himself, and come out victorious. A new era for Gunther. With his win over Drew McIntyre, Gunther seemed to have found a new purpose. The WWE Universe was left wondering what the future held for the former World Heavyweight Champion. Would he go back to his disciplined ways, or had he truly embraced the darkness within him? Gunther's future was uncertain, but one thing was clear, he was no longer the man he once was. The destructive force that had taken the WWE Universe by storm had evolved. It was no longer just about championships or legacies. It was about survival, power, and control, no matter the cost. The Undertaker's warning had been heeded, but in a way that no one could have predicted. Gunther had embraced his descent into madness, and in doing so, he had found a new kind of strength. Whether this new Gunther would dominate the WWE Universe or ultimately destroy himself was yet to be seen. One thing was for certain, though, the landscape of WWE had changed forever. As the weeks went on, Gunther's reign of terror continued, but now, the WWE Universe couldn't help but wonder, what is the true cost of power? And is Gunther's ultimate goal to reclaim the title, or is it something far darker? The future of Gunther in WWE. Gunther's journey from the disciplined ring general to the uncontrollable, aggressive force he is now has been one of the most compelling transformations in WWE history. His loss at WrestleMania 41 and the chaotic aftermath that followed marked the beginning of a new era for the superstar. With the Undertaker's cryptic words still echoing in the air, Gunther's future is uncertain. Will he regain his title and his place as one of the greatest champions in WWE history, or will he continue his path of self-destruction? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure. The WWE Universe will be watching closely as Gunther's story unfolds, for his legacy is still very much in the making. The question remains, is Gunther truly lost, or has he found a new power that will allow him to conquer WWE once again? The answer lies in the future, and the future of Gunther is one that will keep fans on the edge of their seats for years to come. But wait, there's so much more to discover. Click on the next video right here, shown on the screen, for more exclusive insights, reactions, and all the latest happenings in the wrestling world. You won't want to miss it. Every click helps us grow and brings you more amazing content. So please, don't leave just yet, join us for the next video and keep the wrestling conversation going. Thank you for being part of our community. Goodbye for now.